And we're joined from NBC Sports Laffit, Pincay here on Big Board Sports in Albany, 104.5 The Team, ESPN Radio. Laffit, nice to have you with us. Thanks for a few minutes. Busy time. We appreciate you getting back.
Absolutely. How you doing?
We're great. I mean, horse racing fans, this is like the Super Bowl, right, this weekend?
Oh, it is. It was originally designed by a gentleman by the name of John Gaines in 1982. His vision was that, horse racing needed a year-end championship event. And it was vacant. Championships would be decided on paper. You'd be comparing resumes. The best 2-year-old in California v. the best 2-year-old in New York that never faced each other. And this is something horse racing really needed. And now 34 years into it, we say to ourselves, where would we be without a Breeders' Cup?
Let's get right to the rematch. Arrogate and Gunrunner. Gunrunner favored Gunrunner's favored at 9-5. Arrogate 2-1. What's going to happen here?
Well, Arrogate has posterized Gunrunner twice. What he did to him in the Travers and the fastest 1.25 miles that was ever run in Saratoga history. What he did to him in Dubai, spotting the field several lengths, circling the field and running by him like he was standing still. But that was then, and this is now. They have trended in two completely different directions. Gunrunner is much better just from a pedigree standpoint. He was designed to get better with age. Gunrunner was always going to be better at 4 than 3. He might be better at 5 than 4. And because of that, we can debate whether or not he can thrive at the 1.25 mile distance. But he's a better horse now. He's peaking. And I think the general consensus is throughout the industry that Arrogate is just not as good right now as he was this time last year. Does that mean he can't win with his B-plus game? No, which makes it that much more intriguing. So I think that for Gunrunner, he does have a score to settle, and we'll see if on Saturday he can settle all family business.
Laffit, Pincay with us here on Big Board Sports, 104.5 The Team, ESPN Radio. Laffit, Chris Honorato here with Roger Weiland and Brian Mariano. I want to throw something out at you if it's the only chance I get to ask you here. Tim Layden of Sports Illustrated floated the idea, just parenthetically, really, that now that the Breeders' Cup has made its way to a track like Del Mar, it should explore the possibility of a place like Saratoga. Do you ever envision an early November, centerpiece of this sport in the Northeast?
Can you guarantee the weather?
No, you can't, Laffit. No.
If you have like a retractable roof, I think there is no more just passionate, rabid, for lack of a better word, educated horse racing fan than I come across at Saratoga every summer. And it would be amazing. But the weather's a major factor. We haven't had it in the Northeast since that monsoon at Monmouth Park, where we spent 2 days of racing, in ankle-deep water. And your heart went out to everybody at Monmouth Park because you know how excited they were about the event. And, the eyes of thoroughbred racing and everything that comes with the Breeders' Cup focused on Monmouth. And it's just bored for 2 days. And you had a couple of injuries, and you had a couple of horses that had to be euthanized. And a sealed, hard racetrack isn't necessarily the safest track to conduct races over. So I think there's some hesitation there just because of what the weather might be. But, on a nice fall East Coast afternoon, it would be amazing. I was at Keeneland for the Breeders' Cup. It was, we got fortunate with the weather there. It was an excellent event. This was a smaller venue. Yeah, we'd love to see it. And keep in mind, this is what the Breeders' Cup was originally intended to do. It was supposed to move so that it was a neutral site where these championships would be decided.
Laffit, how about Chad Brown this weekend? How many winners do you think he'll produce? He's got 12 horses running in 8 different races.
Where do you set the over/under, right? Like 2.5 somewhere. These are tough races. He has a really good filly in Separation of Powers, but she's outposted. She's stuck out in the 13 post or whatever it is. He has a maiden in Good Magic. Maidens aren't supposed to win Breeders' Cup races, but with how lightly raced these 2-year-olds are, if ever a maiden's going to win a Breeders' Cup race, it's going to be, here in 2017. He has some upside, unlike a lot of the horses exiting the Champagne that I think are distance challenged. Good Magic wants to run farther. Practical Joke just can't seem to get a break in terms of, having a big race configured to his strengths. I think he's a 1-turn miler. I wonder about him at 2 turns. He's 0 for 5 at 2 turns, even though some of those best efforts were against Grade 1 company and in races like the Kentucky Derby. I think his best chance, and the horse I would fall off my chair if she didn't win, was Lady Eli. She is the heavy favorite. She's the favorite for the Filly Mare Turf and the sentimental favorite, considering the fact that she was fighting for her life, a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, and she came back, which was amazing in itself. She survived the laminitis. She missed winning the Breeders' Cup by a nose last year, and she's thriving and better than ever. It's a great story, and it's hard for your heart not to be invested if you're a horse racing fan into seeing Lady Eli come with her best and get that first Filly Mare Turf win. She's already won a Breeders' Cup race as a 2-year-old filly, but to me, she is the best of the Brown brigade that he's sending this year.
Laffit, who do you have winning the juvenile turf this weekend?
It's
Can you?
Raj, you got to tell them why we're so interested.
I got to set you up here. We have. I threw a curveball at you.
What's the head-to-head wager going on there?
Well, here it is. One of our local trainers, head trainer for the University of Albany,
athletic trainer
is a part owner of Untamed Domain, and if that horse wins at 8-1. Jay Geiger will pocket about $30,000. So we're rooting.
So Untamed Domain.
Yeah.
There's a lot of talent and upside there. I actually think he's going to be much better as a 3-year-old. Graham Motion has already compared him to Animal Kingdom and says, look, this isn't necessarily just a grass horse. He could do some great things next year, maybe even on dirt. Maybe we're talking about a Derby contender. I don't love him for the juvenile turf, but he's not impossible. And the races, he looked good in that Summer Stakes up at Woodbine. So yeah, you have a puncher's chance going in. Look out for this Snapper Sinclair for trainer Steve Asmussen. When he was originally left out and he needed a couple of defections to get in, or horses running in the juvenile or whatever it took to get him in the race, that camp was really upset. They were really disappointed that Snapper Sinclair wasn't going to get a chance to run on the juvenile turf, because he can flat out run, and he's going to be a threat. The Europeans are the class, but of the North American-based horses, I think Snapper Sinclair is one that you could take a shot at. And good luck with Untamed Domain, man. That's awesome.
Yeah, no, we are a big rooting interest there. We're going to throw some money down on that, see what happens. How about Pletcher? What are his chances this weekend?
Just 3 horses. It's just odd. You're talking about a guy that once saddled 17 horses on a single Breeders' Cup program. This is before it expanded. This was back in 2006. You had 8 races, 17 starters. He only has 3. Keen Ice came out. Maybe it's just I don't think we see this again, such small representation. Maybe they're being more patient with some of their younger developing horses. He trains a horse named Montauk, who won at Belmont. It was right around, that was about early October. There was some talk of sending him out west for the juvenile to go head-to-head with Old Doro. I think cooler heads prevailed. They're going to be a little bit more patient. Maybe you see him in an allowance race. Maybe you see him in the Remsen, something like that later on this fall. Montauk, I know everybody associated and close with this horse is brimming with confidence at what the future holds for him moving forward, Montauk.
Laffit, I'm not speaking from personal experience here, but I know in the Northeast there's probably some Todd Pletcher fatigue. Out west, is there Bob Baffert fatigue in any way? I mean, he's got 4 horses in the Classic.
Probably from everybody, all the other trainers throughout the rest of the country, when he ships so many horses back east and wins so many of these premier races, for example, at Saratoga, Grade 1, the Coaching Club American Oaks. He won the Travers the last 2 years, American Pharoah, and this year with West Coast. He's loaded. And it's not like he's just a guy taking advantage of ready-made horses. He is an excellent horseman, and he trains by instinct. He doesn't map out a plan for a horse. He lets the horse tell him when they're ready to train, what they want to do, when they want to race. And it's just that sixth sense that more often than not, he's right. And yeah, he's got the relay team going in the Breeders' Cup Classic, and Collected is an absolute threat to steal on a racetrack he loves. And Arrowgate, like I said, he's probably not the same horse now that he was last year. But I mean, we were comparing him to Man of War and Secretariat. So I think his B+ game still puts him right there. And the track here at Del Mar, I think it's a little bit tighter, a little bit faster than it was this summer, which aids Arrowgate. That's all Mike Smith kept talking about, that he couldn't get the leverage. He couldn't push off of the Del Mar surface this summer. And you heard that from a lot of jockeys and trainers, and that it's a little bit tighter now. And I think that that's going to help Arrowgate if he's gonna bring his A game. Obviously, that was part of the conversation this summer. The surface. I think you have a surface that could be more to his liking.
Hey, Laffit, always a pleasure, and I got a busy weekend ahead. Thank you for a few minutes here on, as you well know, a hotbed here for horse racing in the Capital Region.
Always, guys, anytime. And yes, a Breeders' Cup at Saratoga would be awesome.
Let's make it happen. You've got the power, Laffit. You have the pull. We don't.
Spread the word. Thanks, Laffit. Appreciate it.
Again, retractable roof.
Laffit Pincay.